Ladies and gentlemen, I need you to lean in for just a moment, because what I'm about to say might shake something loose in your spirit. We live in a world where we've been taught that if we want something, we've got to chase it, that if we care enough, we should beg for it. That if we're hurting, we should write until our fingers cramp, call until our voice breaks down. Your worth isn't proven through pursuit. That's a truth we don't hear enough, especially in a world that celebrates the chase, glorifies the grind, and teaches us that if we really want something or someone, we have to go after it with everything we've got. But what happens when everything you're chasing doesn't see your value? What happens when the more you pursue, the less you feel like you matter? There's a dangerous message wrapped up in the idea that we have to chase love, chase people, chase opportunities. And too often, especially for those of us who know how to pour, how to give, how to love with our whole heart, we internalize that pursuit as proof. We think if I run hard enough after this person, this dream, this validation, then maybe I'm worthy of having it. Maybe I'm enough. But the problem with that kind of pursuit is that it doesn't affirm your value. It questions it. It puts your worth in someone else's hands, on someone else's timing, in someone else's recognition. And let me tell you, the moment your value becomes dependent on someone else's validation, you've already started trading your identity for approval. You were never created to chase what was never sent for you. There's a difference between putting in the work and begging for a seat at a table God never told you to sit at. We confuse movement with purpose and busyness with calling. But some of us are busy chasing things that were never designed to hold us, love us, or lift us. We're exhausted not because we're weak, but because we're running after things that don't see us. Think about how many nights you've stayed up trying to figure out how to make someone see your heart. How many drafts you've written, texts, messages, letters, trying to explain your intentions. How many phone calls you rehearsed, trying to sound strong when you're really breaking inside. How much of your peace you've sacrificed, just trying to be understood by people who were committed to misunderstanding you. And for what? To be chosen by someone who's only curious, not committed? To prove your loyalty to someone who never intended to stay. To feel like you're enough only when someone finally decides you are? That's not proof of your worth. That's the echo of a lie. A lie that says you have to earn what God already gave you. A lie that says you have to fight to be seen when you were already chosen. A lie that tells you that you have to pursue what's pulling away from you, when the truth is, anything that pulls away from you while you're walking in purpose was never meant to stay. When we chase what doesn't recognize our value, we start dimming ourselves to stay visible. We shrink. We overcompensate. We give discounts on our dignity. We get so used to proving ourselves that we forget how to just be whole, be loved. Be enough without performance, without effort, without the chase. Some of us were taught that stillness means weakness, that if we're not fighting for it, we're not worthy of it. But there is power in your stillness. There is power in letting go. There is strength in knowing that if it's yours, it will meet you in your becoming. It won't require chasing. It will recognize your value, not because you made it undeniable, but because it's already undeniable. You are not hard to love. You are not too much. You are not asking for too much when you ask for honesty, consistency, respect, or peace. You're simply asking for what you've already been called to carry. And anyone who cannot recognize the treasure that is your presence, your heart, your vision, your faith was never qualified to receive it. The pursuit mentality teaches us that we have to work our way into rooms, beg for invitations, and earn attention. But baby, when you know your worth, you realize the room gets better when you walk in. The energy shifts when you speak. The story changes when you show up. You don't chase because what is meant for you will find you even in silence. Even in stillness, even in surrender. You've been through too much to question your worth now. You've cried too many tears, prayed too many prayers, grown through too many storms to forget who you are. You don't have to be in pursuit to be in position. Silence is sometimes the loudest answer. We live in a world that teaches us to always respond, always explain, always defend ourselves. We're trained to fill every moment with words, every space with noise, every conflict with justification. But silence, real, intentional, soul-rooted silence, can speak louder than any argument, louder than any text, louder than any call. There's a divine kind of silence that isn't weakness. It's wisdom, it's clarity, it's power. When you've been ignored, misunderstood, disrespected, or manipulated, your first instinct might be to speak up, to set the record straight, to demand an explanation. But the moment you choose silence, not out of fear, but out of freedom, that's when you reclaim your peace. That's when you realize that not every fight is yours to enter. Not every conversation is worthy of your energy, and not every person deserves access to your voice. Silence can be sacred. It can be your protection, your boundary, your healing space. There's something deeply powerful about not reacting when you're expected to, about choosing stillness in a culture of chaos, about standing in the truth of who you are without needing to announce it to anyone. Sometimes silence is not absence, it's presence. It's the presence of maturity, the presence of discernment, the presence of peace that no one else can disturb. When you stop explaining yourself to people who are committed to misunderstanding you, you realize how heavy those conversations really were. You start to recognize the emotional tax of constantly trying to prove your heart to people who never intended to honor it in the first place. We've all been there, sitting with a phone in our hand, rehearsing the perfect message, wondering if we should respond, call back, send one more paragraph. We think our words will change the outcome. That maybe, just maybe, this time they'll understand. But the truth is, silence is the answer when someone already knows what they did but refuses to be accountable. Silence is the answer when someone is playing games with your time, your feelings, your future. Silence is the answer when you realize your peace is more valuable than being right. There's strength in walking away without needing the last word. There's dignity in choosing your peace over their performance. And sometimes the loudest message you can send is no message at all. Your silence says, I see what you did and I won't argue with it. I simply remove myself. Your silence says, I refuse to lower myself to the level of dysfunction just to feel seen. Your silence says, I value my spirit too much to keep trading it for temporary validation. You don't owe anyone an explanation for choosing yourself. You don't have to unpack your decision to protect your peace, and you certainly don't need to keep speaking to prove your heart. When your silence is rooted in self-worth, it becomes a declaration. It becomes a line drawn in the sand. It becomes the moment you stop pleading for love, for clarity, for closure, and start honoring your own healing instead. Silence can also be a mirror. It reflects the truth. It reveals who's willing to come correct when the access is gone, when the attention stops, when the emotional labor ends. Some people are only loyal to your availability, not your actual value. And when you remove the words, remove the reactions, remove the explanations, they show you exactly who they are. The silence exposes what the words tried to hide. It's not always easy to stay silent. Everything in you might want to speak. You might want to scream your truth from the rooftops, remind them of your worth, tell your side of the story. But when God tells you to be still, it's not because He wants you to lose. It's because He's working in the background while you rest in your identity. He doesn't need your voice to fix what He's already handling. He needs your trust, and sometimes that trust looks like silence. People may not understand your silence. They may accuse you of being cold, detached, distant. Let them. That's not your burden to carry. Your silence isn't bitterness, it's boundaries, it's not punishment, it's preservation. When your silence is intentional, it becomes a sacred space where you get to breathe, heal, and return to yourself without the pressure to perform or explain. The right people will respect your silence. They won't force you to break it just to make them feel comfortable. They'll feel the weight of your absence and choose to show up differently. But even if they don't, even if the silence remains, your peace is intact. Your soul is safe. Your value doesn't shift based on their response. What's for you won't require chasing. That truth may sting at first, especially when your heart is used to running after people, opportunities, validation, trying to prove your worth by what you can hold on to. But the deeper you grow, the more you realize that anything truly aligned with your purpose, your growth, your destiny will not require you to exhaust your soul just to keep it. Real alignment doesn't demand desperation. It flows, it fits, it affirms you without asking you to shrink. We've been taught that everything worth having must be fought for. And yes, there's a fight in faith, there's effort in building, there's labor in becoming. But there is a difference between working for your purpose and chasing after something that's constantly running from you. Anything that makes you feel like you have to keep proving you deserve, it is not rooted in truth. It's rooted in fear. And fear will always make you feel like you're never enough unless you're always in pursuit. You don't have to chase what's already yours. The doors God opens for you won't be locked from the inside. The love meant for you won't be confused or unavailable. The friendships aligned with your spirit won't come with one-sided energy. And the opportunities designed for your calling won't require you to abandon your identity just to walk through the door. When something is yours by divine design, it may challenge you, but it won't deplete you. It may stretch you, but it won't break you. There's a deep peace that comes when you stop chasing and start receiving. Not in a passive way, but in a posture of confidence, a knowing that what is yours will recognize you. What is yours will be magnetized to your growth. What is yours will meet you in purpose, not in performance. And when it comes, you won't have to beg. You won't have to bargain. You won't have to betray yourself just to be seen, loved, or accepted. We chase because we're afraid of missing out. We chase because we believe if we don't show up for it, it won't show up for us. But what if the very act of chasing is what's keeping it away? What if your healing, your blessing, your love, your breakthrough is on the other side of surrender? Not striving. Some things are not delayed because you're not trying hard enough. They're delayed because you're still chasing something that doesn't belong to you. Chasing is rooted in lack. It says, I'm not enough unless I get this. It says, I need you to choose me so I can believe in myself. It says, if I don't have it now, I must not be worthy. But when you shift into alignment, when you truly believe in your identity and your purpose, you stop chasing and start attracting. You start drawing in what belongs to the version of you that is whole, that is healed, that is deeply rooted. You don't have to perform to be loved. You don't have to impress to be accepted. The real you, the honest, evolving, soft, bold, powerful you, is already enough for the right people, the right spaces, the right timing. You don't need to manipulate or maneuver your way into anything that's divinely assigned to you. When it's real, it won't run from your boundaries. It won't require you to compromise your peace. It won't ask you to erase your past or pretend you're not still in process. There's freedom in releasing the chase, freedom to rest, freedom to trust, freedom to become. Because when you're no longer chasing, you're finally still enough to hear the whisper of God. You're still enough to see what's been waiting for you all along. You start noticing the blessings in front of you instead of obsessing over the ones that keep slipping away. You realize that some things left because they were supposed to, that some rejections were actually redirections, that some losses were divine protection in disguise. Letting go of the chase doesn't mean you've given up. It means you've grown up. It means you've matured enough to know that what's for you will align with you. It will respect you. It will honor the pace of your process and the depth of your heart. You'll never have to wonder if you're too much or not enough, because what's for you will see you clearly and come with the capacity to stay. Begging is beneath your divine identity. You were not created to plead for love, to fight for attention, or to convince someone of your worth. That's not who you are, and deep down you know it. But life, heartbreak, and rejection have a way of making us forget. They whisper lies that sound like truth when we're vulnerable, telling us we have to prove ourselves, that we have to earn care, that we must beg to be chosen. But there is no begging in alignment. There is no pleading in divine favor. There is no desperation in a soul that knows who it is. Begging shows up in quiet, subtle ways. It shows up when you send that extra message just to feel seen. It shows up when you accept less than you deserve because you're afraid of being alone. It shows up when you keep explaining yourself to someone who isn't even trying to understand you. It shows up when you stay in places that are breaking you just because you're scared of starting over. And while it may not look like falling on your knees in front of someone, it's still a posture of spiritual submission to something that was never meant to rule you. You are royalty. That doesn't mean you're entitled. It means you're rooted. It means your identity is not tied to someone's opinion or someone's attention span. It means your value is not determined by how much someone wants you, but by the fact that you exist, called, chosen, crafted with intention. When you beg, you operate from a place of amnesia, forgetting the crown that sits on your spirit. You forget the strength that carried you through every storm, every loss, every setback. You forget that being loved is not a reward, it's your birthright. Some of us were conditioned to believe that begging equals effort, that if we love someone, we must prove it through pursuit, that if we care, we should never stop trying. But there's a difference between loving wholeheartedly and abandoning yourself for the hope of being seen. There's a difference between grace and self-neglect, between humility and humiliation. And when you find yourself constantly reaching, constantly chasing, constantly waiting for someone to give you what you deserve freely, you're not walking in love, you're surviving on breadcrumbs. Begging drains your spirit. It chips away at your confidence. It creates soul ties to people and places that were never equipped to carry your heart. It's the spiritual equivalent of knocking on a locked door, hoping it will open even when you know the key was never handed to you. And every time you beg for love, for clarity, for recognition, you're reinforcing the idea that you're not enough as you are, that you must perform, shrink, bend, twist, or suffer to be worthy. But the truth is, you are already worthy. Not because of what you bring to the table, but because you are the table. You are the place where legacy is built, where love grows deep, where healing happens, where light breaks through. And you don't beg people to sit at a table they were never meant to dine at. You bless them, release them, and keep making room for those who know how to show up with honor. Begging also keeps you tied to cycles. You may not see it at first, but over time, the more you beg, the more you settle. The more you settle, the more you lose sight of yourself. The more you lose sight of yourself, the harder it becomes to even recognize what you truly deserve. And so you end up staying in rooms that feel familiar but are slowly killing your light. But God will never require you to stay in a space that demands you to deny your identity to keep the peace. He doesn't ask you to beg, he asks you to trust. To know that what is real will never ask you to devalue yourself just to keep it close. There's something sacred about walking away from anything that makes you feel like you have to audition for affection. There's something holy about standing in your truth and saying, I am enough, whether you choose me or not. You don't need to write another message explaining what you meant. You don't need to send another paragraph begging for closure. Sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is be silent, stand tall, and remember who you are. You were not born to beg for what you were built to embody. You are love, you are light, you are legacy, and anything or anyone that cannot see that is simply not qualified to hold it. Let closed doors protect your peace. Sometimes the greatest act of love God shows us is through a door that doesn't open, a relationship that doesn't return, an opportunity that slips through our fingers no matter how tightly we try to hold on. It's hard, it's confusing, and it can feel like rejection. But not every closed door is a punishment. Some are protection in disguise, some are mercy wrapped in silence, and some are divine redirection, guiding you away from what you thought you needed and toward what you were always meant to walk in. We don't like closed doors. We want access. We want answers. We want yes. We pray for God to open things, move things, make space for things. But what happens when the prayer gets answered with a no? What happens when the door stays shut, no matter how much we knock, no matter how much we cry, no matter how deeply we believed it was ours? That's where trust has to kick in. Not trust in outcomes, but trust in the one who sees what's on the other side of that door when you can't. Because the truth is, not every open door leads to peace. Some lead to distraction, to detours, to detachment from your identity. Some lead to relationships that look right on the outside, but are rooted in confusion, in codependency, in chaos. Some lead to opportunities that feed your ego but starve your soul. And you'll never know the full weight of what you've been spared from if you're always trying to force your way into spaces that were never made to hold you. There's a reason some people leave. There's a reason some jobs fall through. There's a reason certain seasons end. And it's not because you're not good enough. It's not because you didn't pray hard enough. It's not because you failed. Sometimes it's simply because that door was not connected to your next level. And if you had walked through it, you might have missed the real assignment, the real connection, the real growth that was waiting for you just around the corner. Closed doors can hurt. They bring grief. They bring silence. They bring that aching kind of loneliness that makes you question your worth's cool. But if you sit long enough with that closed door, you'll start to see the fingerprints of God all over it. You'll begin to understand that He didn't close it to punish you. He closed it because He loves you too much to let you settle. Because He knew that open door would cost you your peace. And your peace is far too expensive to trade for temporary satisfaction. Peace is not just a feeling, it's a posture. It's the ability to stand in front of a door you wanted to walk through and still say, I trust you. It's being able to let go of what could have been and embrace what is with open hands. It's the maturity to know that if it didn't open, it didn't belong. And if it didn't belong, it's not your job to fix it, force it, or figure it out. It's your job to keep walking. There are blessings on the other side of closed doors, but we miss them when we keep staring at what didn't work. We miss them when we spend our energy rehearsing what went wrong instead of receiving what's going right. We miss them when we build our identity around the access we were denied instead of the purpose we're being prepared for. Your life is not defined by the doors that didn't open. It's shaped by the courage to move forward even when you don't understand why they stayed closed. Sometimes protection looks like rejection. Sometimes growth looks like goodbye. And sometimes peace looks like a door that never budged. Because God knew you were too loyal, too hopeful, too committed to walk away on your own. So He did it for you. He closed it. And now your only job is to trust that He's guiding you towards something that won't require you to fight just to be seen, fight just to be chosen, fight just to feel safe. You deserve to walk through doors that don't question your presence. You deserve rooms where your peace isn't disturbed just so someone else can be comfortable. You deserve connections that don't ask you to trade your truth for attachment. And if the door didn't open, it's because something better is already being prepared, something that won't cost you your mind, your heart, or your identity. Your absence is a message, and sometimes it speaks louder than your presence ever could. There comes a point in your growth when showing up, explaining, defending, or proving isn't an act of strength. It's a drain on your spirit. And in those moments, stepping back, removing your energy, withholding your access becomes the boldest declaration of self-respect you can make. Absence doesn't mean you're bitter. It doesn't mean you've given up. It means you've realized that not every space deserves your light, not every person deserves your reach, and not every situation deserves your time. Presence is powerful, but presence without boundaries is exhausting. You can't keep pouring into places that never pour back. You can't keep showing up where you're only tolerated. You can't keep offering your peace as a sacrifice on altars of dysfunction, confusion, or inconsistency. There's something sacred about the moment you realize that just because you can fix it doesn't mean you're called to. Just because you have the words doesn't mean you need to speak. Just because you love them doesn't mean you have to keep showing up for a version of them that won't show up for you. Self-walk for you. Absence teaches, it reveals what your presence was carrying. It makes people sit with the silence they created. It forces others to confront what they lost when they failed to honor you. Some people will only begin to value you when they no longer have the option to take you for granted. When the constant communication stops, when the explanations stop, when the forgiveness is no longer immediate and the access is no longer automatic. Your absence becomes a mirror, and not everyone is ready for what it reflects. You are not obligated to keep returning to the same broken spaces out of guilt or habit. Healing doesn't require you to keep touching what hurt you just to prove you've moved on. Growth doesn't mean being endlessly available to people who mishandled your kindness. Sometimes the most mature thing you can do is exit quietly, let them wonder, and move in silence toward your peace. Not to spite anyone, but to protect yourself. To honor the soft, sacred parts of your spirit that were overlooked for too long. When you remove yourself, you reclaim your power. You shift from being reactive to being intentional. You give yourself the space to think clearly, feel deeply, and move purposefully. You stop making decisions from a place of emotional exhaustion and start making them from a place of spiritual alignment. Because in your absence, clarity is born. In your absence, you're no longer bound by the noise of confusion or the weight of expectation. You get to see what matters, what aligns, what stays, and what was only ever present because you kept giving it oxygen. Some people were only connected to your energy, not your essence. They were drawn to your light but weren't ready to be responsible with it. They liked the idea of you, the benefits of you, the access to you, but they didn't know how to hold you, how to see you, how to protect what they were given. And when you finally pull back, not as a threat, but as an act of self-preservation, you begin to see who was truly there for you and who was only there for what they could take. Your absence isn't an empty space. It's a boundary. It's a spiritual checkpoint. It's a statement that says, I no longer negotiate my peace for company, or I'm no longer sacrificing my joy just to keep a seat at a table that makes me question my value. The right people won't be confused by your boundaries. The right people won't need constant explanations. They will feel your absence and respond with change, not with guilt trips, not with blame, not with manipulation, but with a desire to grow. You are not abandoning anyone by choosing yourself. You are not being unloving by removing yourself from what drains you. Absence is a form of accountability. It gives people the space to decide if they want to rise, if they want to meet you where you are, or if they were never meant to go where you're going. And you just keep rising. You keep choosing wholeness over habit, peace over performance, alignment over attachment. Because when you protect your space, you protect your purpose. When you value your absence, you value your presence even more. Ladies and gentlemen, hear me when I say this. Your becoming doesn't require begging, chasing, explaining, or exhausting your soul for what was never meant to stay. The version of you that's rising, evolving, healing, and aligning doesn't need to knock on closed doors or beg for seats at tables that cannot handle your presence. This season is about release. It's about realignment. It's about understanding that your peace is power, your silence is sacred, and your absence can speak with a volume your words never could. You are not created to perform for love or strive for worth. You already are worthy, already are enough, already are chosen. So walk with your head high, your spirit anchored, and your boundaries firm. If it costs you your peace, it's too expensive. If it asks you to shrink, it's not for you. If it requires chasing, it's not aligned. This is the season where you stop reaching and start receiving, stop begging and start believing, stop calling out and start calling up. You are no longer waiting to be chosen, you are choosing you. And that choice is where your power lives.